Hey, what up YouTube, and welcome back to a new video with Rams fan YT. In today's video, I'm going to be going over my predictions for the upcoming 2025-26 National League North and National League South. It's one of my favourite times of the season making these prediction videos. I know you like them, or you tolerate them, and sometimes they do get a bit wacky, and sometimes I get them nailed on, but it's all a bit of harmless fun. Leave your predictions in the comment section down below. That would be amazing. I want to know your opinion on my ones as well. But let's just dive straight into the National League North with the bottom place team, in my opinion, is going to be Radcliffe. Yeah, I'm sorry, Radcliffe, but I think 24. I have long said that joint managers are doomed to fail, and these two guided Radcliffe to a struggle last season. And I do think this season will be worse with stronger teams coming up. You just need to look at some of the likes of Macclesfield and Merthyr, huge teams in comparison. And I think this season will be worse for them. Other teams around them as well are becoming far stronger. I predict they will struggle to compete with those around them. And also, it's quite a difficult area to attract fans with the nearby teams of Bury, Rochdale, Oldham, and Man City. All of them are high flying at the moment. Manchester United occasionally, but they're not doing great at the moment. So maybe I'll have to get a few disenfranchised Man U fans. But yeah, long old season for Radcliffe. 23rd, Peterborough Sports. This may come as a bit of a surprise to some people who are regular watchers of National League North or regular watchers of this YouTube channel, because I often fancy Peterborough Sports to have an outside shout for a playoffs. But for a similar reason to Radcliffe, they have joint managers, albeit they are slightly better ones than Radcliffe. But you got to look, they've lost Guy Assey, who was a key contributor from to goal last season with 15 goals and 9 assists. Without them, they may well have been relegated. They have yet to bring in a striker, as far as I can see, to replace the lack of goal power. And from this early stage predictions, we still got a fair few weeks to go. I can feasibly see Sports struggling this season. 22nd, Oxford City. It was a real struggle for them to compete in the National League North last season, only winning 1 in 3.5 games, which in a stronger relegation battle could have seen them drop through the leagues. But I would say that this season is stronger, with the likes of Macclesfield, Fylde, Merthyr and Telford all stronger than Russell, Needham, Market and Farsley ever were. Ross Jenkins has inherited a strong team from David Oldfield, and when he came in initially and got them promoted, do you remember back a few seasons ago when Oxford got promoted? Well, and since then he has struggled with them, with a relegation with Oxford and a huge underperformance. You got to say this last season gone by. Like you compare it to a team. You compare Ross Jenkins for me. He didn't do well with Boreham Wood initially. He didn't really do that well when he came back. And since since returning to Oxford City, I don't really rate Ross Jenkins that much. But a key cog in their defence is Aaron Drew, and he has now since left to join Woking, as well as the backup to him of Cole Kapekawa. I don't know how to pronounce that, sorry. With no defenders brought in to replace them, and a team that would be relegated on goals conceded, it isn't looking great. There's also the ever-present issue with Oxford being placed in the National League North. That's the cost of travel, when you've got journeys to South Shields, Spennymoor and Darlington, and they may not necessarily have the necessary funds to be able to invest in the playing budget accordingly. So yeah, I think relegation for Oxford. 21st, Bedford Town. I read that Bedford's budget last season was only enough for them to stay up in the Southern League, so it was an almighty surprise to see them promoted, and therefore it's probably a step too far to be in the National League North, especially when you've got a cross-rival team in Bedford, in Rail Bedford, who are all the money big boys and all players who are thinking of going over to Bedford or in the Bedford area think that's a better project to join. So it is a difficult place to recruit as well, and especially seeing how far they're going to have to travel on the road. I mean, they've been placed in the north. They are firmly southern. I think we can all agree on that for one. Lee Bertram's only experience of this level as well was a COVID-stricken 2020-21 season, with him finishing distinctively mid-table after a curtailed season. A lot has changed since then, and it was the National League South, which was a very different league. And at that point, I would argue, was a weaker league. I think they're a bit more equal now, but it was certainly the lesser of the two until fairly recently. They have brought in a fair bit of experience at this level with Greg Taylor, Sean Jeffers, Cole Pakawa, and Tyrone Marsh already this summer, and have retained the core of that promotion-winning squad. But for me, this is just a reason why they won't be last place, as I think they do come in as heavy underdogs. 20th, Worksop Town. I did actually want to see Worksop play. I don't know if you knew that, and they are high intensity and a fast side. If they are the same as they were a couple of seasons back when I saw them, that is. Although Craig Parry hasn't managed at this level, it so may prove to come stuck. So he may prove to come to stuck when the teams learn to play against him in a league, which is a bit more possession based. They have a bit more time on the ball. I do rate the signing of Luke Waterfall, but I don't know if they have the overall quality to be much higher than a relegation scrap, to be honest. 19th, Merthyr Town. I do think the home ground can be a bit of a fortress, but they may struggle away. Somewhat like Portsmouth did in the Championship last season, They finished solidly, comfortably in that sort of low mid-table bunch, but never really looked likely to be relegated. So I think a very similar thing with Merthyr here. Paul Michael is another manager who hasn't experienced this level as manager, so could struggle with the adaptation in what I would say is the weakest of the Tier 7 leagues last season in the Southern League South. They have been so far very quiet this transfer window. So maybe over-reliant on the side that won promotion last season, maybe. It remains to be seen if they can push away from a relegation struggle for me. 18th, South Shields. I think last season we really saw the underbelly of South Shields as they struggled in their second season. Admittedly, not as much as Warrington did, and Warrington got relegated, of course. Jeff Thompson is still yet to sell the club, despite wanting to, and therefore a difficult decision does come of whether to continue at the high levels of investment as he had done previously, or hold out for new investment. Hard to tell. That's his decision to make, of course. Last season, I think we saw he took a very hands-off ownership approach, and I think that did leave the Tynesiders drifting a bit. Ian Watson has spent most of his coaching career as a number 2, I must say, to Mike Williamson. Don't get me wrong, I do rate Mike Williamson, but Ian Watson being his number 2, I'm not sure about that. And high-energy football doesn't necessarily guarantee results. The silver lining around the First Cloud Arena is that they have a strong fan base in the top 5 for average supporters at home last season. And they have signed a few promising youngsters, such as Daniel Dodds, Kane Sykes, Caden Kelly, and Jasper Sheik. But they will take time to grow into the men's game, with half of them coming from academy football. So yeah, I think it will be a long season with many mistakes, but not quite enough to be relegation threatened. 17th, Curzon Ashton. I'm pretty certain I said this last season, but Curzon Ashton are a wild team to predict, with sometimes the teams challenging for playoffs, sometimes mid-table. We've already seen a change within the managerial hot seat, for example, with a risky appointment to Mark Bradshaw, who, yes, is an internal appointment, so knows the club, but he doesn't have experience in managing men's football. They have lost their first-team goalkeeper in Bobby Jones to Boston, responsible for one of the best defences in the league last season, and I'm not convinced on his replacement Hawkins, who conceded 15 more goals over the course of the season last season round. They have also lost a lot of wingers, who in my opinion haven't been adequately replaced. Ultimately, in changing management and a downgrading quality probably means a mid-table season. 16th, AFC Telford United. A vastly experienced National League North side, and much like Leamington last season, I think they will be comfortably mid-table. They also have a very experienced manager in Kevin Wilkin, who has experience for National League North more than probably any other manager in the league at present, and has a good pedigree in the FA Trophy as well. I think overall the club is good enough on and off the field to be a mid-table side. 15th, Macclesfield. So if Robbie Savage was still at the helm, it may well have been a bit higher. I just don't think the Rooneys have a good management in their blood, so to speak, and he has no experience of management. So will be a season of adjustment, we'll have to say. But they have some real quality players at Rooney's disposal, such as Menayasi, Danny Whitehead, Justin Johnson, and Danny Elliott, who scored 35 goals last season. However, we've already seen Savage raid his own club for Mendy, Pemberton, and Ken Guinea. How many more of his old squad is he going to take? We don't know. I could feasibly see Elliott moving on this summer, and it may therefore be a season of overhaul. And therefore, I do think a bit of a mid-table season, the stabilisation, maybe a bit more realistic as well. I don't think it's going to be as easy as just flying up the leagues. Definitely one of adjustment. It's huge difference as well between the Northern Prem and the National League North in quality. 14th, Chorley. I think this may be one of those seasons where they just have an unexpected and unexplainable blip. Everything on paper looks like it would just be another playoff challenging season, same manager, not many transfers, same old Chorley, really. So why have I got them in mid-table? Well, similar for a reason that Overton were mid-table last season, and Chester the season before that, and Boston the season before that. Notice a pattern here. For some reason, a team that usually finishes in the playoffs just inexplicably finishes in mid-table. And this season, I just think it's going to be Chorley. 13th, Scarborough Athletic. Another season and another 13th place season for Scarborough. They're making a habit of it now, aren't they? Is it really a surprise when they have kept the same manager, Jonathan Greening? I think it will be another uninspiring season, especially seeming they have to start the Challenger playing their home games at the start of the season, at least, at Bridlington, which is, Tier 9 quality stadium. And yes, there'll be some grammar improvements, but overall, it's not home, is it? As the start of the season, I think I'll have a slow start. But they have yet to really bring in anyone. They've let a few deadwood go. So yeah, I think a slow start, but at the end of the season in their usual 13th place. 12th, Marine. I think this club is on a good strategy at the moment to have a development of a club and how to get on an upward trajectory, because I think they're really building something. That FA Cup money really did come in clutch when they played against Tottenham over COVID Day. I don't think Bobby Grant is a bad manager and may well end up taking Marine to a mid-table finish. I think George Newell is a good signing, who in 3 years at Barlowtown has scored 28 goals in 59 games. Basically a goal every other game. So if he can translate that across, it'll be a great signing. Overall, I think Marine are smart and savvy in the transfer market, and accordingly will improve slightly on their 15th place finish to finish in 12th this time round. 11th, Leamington. In the season that marks 25 years since Leamington were resurrected, I think the feel-good factor around the club will lead to an improvement and finish in 11th. Paul Holloran has been associated with the Breakers since 2009, in charge of 711 games, and I think we'll have another solid season in the National League North. They have recruited some promising youngsters, so it does remain to be seen if they can operate together to push them up the table, but I firmly believe they will do so. 10th, Darlington. I think we'll see another similar season to last season with Darlington, just not having enough to seriously challenge for the playoffs. Everyone knows how good a job Steve Watson has done with Darlow, taking him from an almost certain relegation to a miraculous survival and then challenging for playoffs in the season after, which was actually last season now. I think the goodwill will continue into this season. Watson has brought in some Gateshead players, but more importantly, has cleared a lot of deadwood. I've seen some of the clubs who have picked them up in the likes of Redcar Town and Northallerton down in the Northern League. So yeah, a marginal improvement from last season, I think. 9th, Spennymoor Town. Is anyone really surprised that I've predicted Spennymoor to finish just outside the playoffs? This happens every single season. They look like they can make the playoffs, but just fail to be consistent enough to get over that dotted line. I think we can say Graham Lee has cemented himself as a legend now in County Durham for taking Spennymoor to the FA Trophy final for the first time ever. I wasn't sure of his appointment actually initially, but has proven himself at this level, and I think another strong season from the Moors. 8th, Buxton. Buxton have proven themselves more than capable of competing in this league for the playoffs. John McGrath is a top quality manager, having regularly competed for the playoffs over his managerial career at both Mickleover and now Buxton. Tate Campbell is a solid acquisition as he was a key part of the Hereford side to challenge for the playoffs last season. They managed to get Diego Lamo, I have no idea how you pronounce his name, off the books, but he was a really overpaid player. Most arguably the most overpaid player in the history of non-league, who is apparently, I've heard, on a grand a week next season with Matlock in Tier 8. Well, especially how poor he was last season, I wouldn't be paying that Matlock, crikey. So that will probably free up a bit of a budget to bring in some key acquisitions. So yeah, another season challenging at the top end of the table for playoffs. 7th, Alfreton Town. I think we can see a return to normality for the Reds, really, with another playoff challenge under Billy Heath. With the new American owners, there's certainly potential for investment into the squad. Just hopefully no name changes, something like Alfreton Red Sox, or call them Alfreton, or something like that, you know. At present, there is a little movement in regards to incomings, but I've seen a lot of trialists around the club. We know that's usually the case with Alfreton, with the core squad used to playoff challenging. So the 7th place finish, I think, is fair. I mean, I must just say, I did see Alfreton last night playing their pre-season friendly against Doncaster over 260 minutes. They held their own. It was a 3-2 loss in the end, but there was no disgrace, and certainly had some good spells in there. If they get some of them, a few of the trialists they had signed up, I think Alfreton are definitely going to be more than competitive this season round. 6th, Southport. This might be a pretty mad prediction, but I do remember when Southport were at a Football League club. And that maybe they may be able to return to them heights one day. Maybe. Neil Dans was the manager responsible for the promotion of Macclesfield to Tier 7. So he is an experienced manager. He is an experienced one, but his only experience as a manager was a successful one. Mo Torre comes in as a key member of a playoff finishing Chorley side last season. More importantly, I think they've done a good job of shifting some of the negativity from the club, seeing some of the outgoings. This reset might do the club a world of good, and therefore get into the playoffs if the fans give the new manager a chance, because I know it's quite a toxic environment around Southport at the moment, and a lot of fans are thinking that they're more likely to be relegated than promoted. But you'll see. 5th, Chester. A playoff regular, so another season and another playoff finish, and probably another playoff heartbreak. Only in one season has Callum McIntyre failed to reach the playoffs. Another heavily invested season with notable signings such as Dion Kelly Evans dropping from a league above, Alfranda Zanzala, who on his day can be great, James Jones, who has been a key rotational player for Altonshire, Tom Leake on loan, who helped Boston to promotion a few seasons back, and Finley Shrimpton, who was immense with Spennymoor last season. They haven't really lost any quality, only a few rotational reserve team players. So yeah, a solid playoff challenging squad for me. 4th, Hereford. Throughout most of last season, they were playoff quality. However, they just missed out by a singular point. I think they will finally be able to get over that line and definitely finish in the playoffs this season. Paul Caddis is continuing as manager and will probably continue the good work he's already doing at the club. They've brought in promising youngster Madhu Cisse from Notts County, National League North veterans who are approaching their peaks in Keenan Kwanzaa, Kai Williams, and Theo Robinson. The latter two have experience of the league above as well. So overall, I think an improvement and a playoff finish, especially seeming they had the second highest average attendance last season, a home side that is definitely willing them on for success. 3rd, AFC Fylde. We know that Craig Mahon is a decent manager at this level, having almost taken Curzon Ashton to the playoffs last season, but this is arguably a step up in expectations, with Fylde expecting an instant return to the National League. They have moved on some of the negativity from last season, but yet to have brought in any players as a replacement. But considering the budget and the calibre of the club now, having established itself previously as likely to be promotion candidates, they will probably be able to recruit well. I will say that a top 3 finish is very likely. 2nd, Kings Lynn Town. James Rowe as manager is a blast from the past, for obvious reasons. But he was declared innocent, so rightfully he has been allowed back into managerial circles. If you're innocent, you're innocent. When he was with Chesterfield, he took them from 22nd to 6th place. So I think he might be able to get to the playoffs with Linnets. As on average, he wins every other game. Oh, sorry for that. That would be good enough over the course of a full season to challenge the title, albeit I can envisage them finishing just short. In terms of signings, there's some real quality. With non-league stalwart Adam Marriott, serial National League playoff finisher Reece Hall-Johnson, Jack Lambert, who a few seasons back was vital in Darlington's playoff push, and Guy Assey, who we have already talked about, his goal contributions of 20 goal contributions also that last season. This is because they have lost some quality, let's not get it wrong, and experience, with Gibraltarian international Kean Ronan moving on, as has Josh Coulson, who wasn't as important last season, but he's very experienced. Same can be said of Greg Taylor, Jonathan Margetts, and star player Dylan Crowe. So a lot of turnover, hence why it will probably take a bit of time to click together, but once they do, they'll be flying high, probably just missing out on the title, I'll say. First, Kidderminster Harriers. If it wasn't already obvious, I have gone with the easy choice of Kiddie. Adam Murray is an interesting manager, with some poor spells, noticeably at Mansfield, Boston and Fylde. However, his last spell with Eastbourne was a categorical success. So if he can replicate that and better, then I would say the Harriers are very likely to win the league. The fan base and the facilities would be enough to convince players to join him, especially assuming they are professional, shown by acquisitions such as Jordan Tunnicliffe and Toby Sho-Silver, who both played in the Football League previously, Amika Obi, who is a very promising youngster in need of regular football, Pierce Bird, who followed Murray from Eastleigh along with Jack Clark, Dan Mooney, who has obvious qualities, just needs to show it consistently, and Luke Spokes, who will be familiar to the fans of the National League South for his spells with Chippenham and Bath. They definitely have crafted a side for promotion. A few experienced veterans have moved on, and some will be missed, such as fan favourite Caleb Richards, but overall, they have improved and they are going to win the league. On to the National League South. 24th, Ebbsfleet United. They were so poor last season in the National League, I can imagine they will slip straight through the leagues to the Isthmian League next season. They have stuck with Josh Wright, who, let's say, over 27 games that he had with Ebbsfleet last season, only won twice and drew 8 times with a win percentage of 7.4%. They really should have replaced the manager in the off-season. They have a huge turnover of players with some strong incomings, though, in the shape of Gillingham legend Max Emma, National League winner Ben Coker, National League South playoff winner Kwesi Appiah, Jack Hessenthaler, who did get relegated with Dagenham and Redbridge last season, though. Josh Coley from League 2 outfit Sutton United, National League South playoff finalist Charlie Seaman. I could go on, but this quality becomes disjointed under poor management, which we've already established is the case with the Fleet. So yeah, buck stops with the manager for me, and I think it's going to be another relegation season. 23rd, Bath City. If you look at a recent history of the National League South, you will notice how teams that have been in mid-table for seasons on end eventually get relegated. And over the last few seasons, Bath have been regressing. I find Darren Way quite an arrogant manager, and I think he was responsible for Yeovil dropping into the National League and has never really managed a team in the top half of the table. Yeah, so I think pure season from Bath altogether and getting relegated. 22nd, Tonbridge Angels. Although Craig Nelson is known for attacking football, his experience so far is a playoff finish with Glebe in Tier 9 and a mid-table finish in the Isthmian League. This appointment then doesn't fill me with confidence of a strong season ahead. Neither does the transfer window so far. They've lost Mo Dabre and Jamie Fielding. I'm yet to be convinced on any of the signings made so far this window, and I think the squad is being developed into an Isthmian League standard squad, and as a result, they will go into that league. 21st, Chelmsford City. Out of all the managers you could appoint, you chose Angelo Harrop, who has a record of 1.56 wins per game. I would say he is a decent manager, but there's a very different squad in Braintree Town and very different expectations with Braintree, he was just expected to stay up in the National League. That was his remit. Chelmsford, it will be promotion. And they've just removed all the good work done under Robbie Simpson, who is now, so they've now gone back to step zero, really. Albeit this decision was beyond their control. I mean, why was Robbie Simpson retiring at the age of 40 anyway? There has been some huge changes, losing Kane Critchlow, who provided 13 goals for Chelsea last season. Another 5 goals and vital experience from Jack Hyde has gone. St Vincent and Grenadines international Jazzy Barnum Bob. Another 7 goals gone from Jordan Greenridge. So in total, I've counted 25 goals taken from the squad, which would be hard for any signing to replace. And the only centre forward they brought in so far is Jack Barham, who did score 10 goals last season, but that still leaves, if the records were to be replicated exactly, 15 goals less. But it's not just goals that will be lost, but the squad identity they were building together and proven to be successful in the past. I mean, they finished second in 2023-24. Because of the instability created this summer, I think we will see how quickly things can go wrong and they will be relegated. 20th AFC Totem. Jimmy Ball is the son of 1966 World Cup winner Alan Ball, and he's the manager of Totem. And I think thus far has got a record of a win every other game. What a player! What manager rather, sorry. He was doing such a good job with Totem that he was on the shortlist for the next Forest Green Rovers manager. But credit to him, he has stuck with the club and has reaped dividends with promotion last season. I must confess I know very little about this club, except for the last 2 seasons they were knocking on the door of promotion, and they were promoted from having been promoted to the Southern League Premier Division South in 2021-22, and had a good FA Trophy campaign last season as well, reaching the 3rd round, beating Merthyr Town, who won promotion to National League North on their run. They've thus far proven themselves capable in the level below, but this is a huge jump up. The few signings they've made, I have been impressed with, of Christy Ward, who is a young but has some experience at this level, Lee Hodson, who is vastly experienced and a key part of Eastleigh's side for the last 2 seasons, and Brandon Hornstrup, who just needs consistent football. But overall, they have kept that core of the promotion-winning squad and manager. So overall, I think it is a leap up, but they will just about stay up. 19th, Dover Athletic. Great to see Dover back after a huge decline, and shows you can come back from it. Jake LeBeau was the man to guide the return, but we must not forget he was the one to get Dover relegated in the first place. And therefore, I'm not going to give them ringing endorsement to do phenomenally well, but enough for safety. Okay. Harry Beadle really needs to prove it, having been both relegated with Bishop Stortford and Aveley. Neither can wholly be attributed to him, of course, but it is a questionable signing for a side looking to stay up. However, the quality that got them promoted from the difficult Isthmian League will be enough to stay up come the end of the season, but may come down to the final day. I do actually think the Isthmian League last season was the strongest of all the leagues, so the fact that Dover managed to overcome them in the playoffs certainly proves that they do have some mental fortitude. 18th, Hornchurch. Second season syndrome does happen. Just ask Aveley or Taunton Town or any other club which has experienced it over the last few seasons. And it will therefore come as no surprise if this is a season that is harder for Hornchurch. However, the relegation will be prevented because I do highly rate Darryl McMahon as a manager, who usually has his teams challenging for the playoffs. So I would urge the Urchins to keep the faith. The reason often attributed to second season syndrome is twofold. 1, loss of promotion feel-good feeling, and 2, players having established themselves at this level and want to go and try other better teams, potentially snapping them up. Tommy Wood and Bailey Clements are proof of the latter, albeit we're a bit more bit part players and not first teamers. I do like the signings of Josh Hare and Josh Rees. So a steady season, not looking too much at relegation. Just a look at the table at the end of the season will make it look less impressive. 17th, Chippenham Town. The permanent mid-table side of Chippenham, as proven since 2016 when they were promoted to the National League South, they've only been in the playoffs once, and the rest of them seasons have been in mid-table. So, of course, I would say they'll finish mid-table. Gary Horgan is the man who is responsible for this mediocrity. I do think the signing of Canis Carroll is a good one, as he was important in Oxford City's promotion in 2021-22. Ezio Touré is also a good player, having scored double figures last season in the Southern League, and he's young with much potential. But the losses of Matt McClure and Luke Spokes are difficult qualities to replace. However, overall, it has just been tinkering, so another mid-table finish. 16th, Farnborough. I think this season will be a slight regression from last season. Billy Clifford is a great signing at this level, having spent the last 2 seasons in the league above, including helping Barnet to promotion last season. Epsom United legend and St. Lucian international Dominic Polian comes with Football League, National League, and promotion from National League South on his CV. So is his Ebbsfleet teammate following him of Rakesh Bingham. But they've arguably lost greater quality in losing Pakistani international Harun Hamid, hugely experienced Ricky Holmes, and promising youngster Richard Chin. So currently they are roughly the same as they were last season. I just think they're going to slightly regress overall. 15th, Dorking Wanderers. Player heartache can always impact a club, especially one with so high expectations as Dorking. And with Mark White suspended for the opening 6 games of the season, things could start off very badly. I do rate Louis Annesley and Denon Lewis and Frank Vincent. They have, however, lost experience for when things go against them. They've lost Barry Fuller, Reese Murphy, Bobby Joe Taylor, Rob Milsom, and Callum Kennedy, who all may have not been playing regularly, but were the key heads in the dressing room, which I would say may have made Dorking more successful on the pitch. Without that crucial experience, and when things get tough, I do feel Dorking could have a difficult season and finish a disappointing mid-table. 14th, Hemel Hempstead Town. Despite my negativity around them in my last prediction video for National League North-South, they were truly overperforming my expectations last season, and I think it was a very respectable finish in the end. So I am going to go back to them to have I'm going to back them to have another mid-table finish. This is part of the inspired appointment of Lee Allinson, who I must say I didn't credit to do that well when he was appointed, but credit must go with him because he did steady the ship. I do like the look of some of the signings with Steve Arnold, who will likely be a backup keeper, admittedly. Seo Toman Prinsipe, international Moru Vilhete, who hit double figures for goals last season as a utility player as well. Hampton and Richmond Borough fan favourite Jake Gray, and Jermaine Anderson, who played a key part in Wokingh's great FA Trophy run to the semi-finals last season. So I think another solid season in mid-table for the Tudors. 13th, Maidstone United. George Ilokobe is undeniably a good manager, but to only just squeak into the playoffs last season is just not good enough. And a very strong National League South season this time around, we may see Maidstone fail to make the cut this season and finish mid-table. They've lost key players like Guyan, national team defender Reece Greenridge. Charlie Seaman has gone, promising youngster Tate Trusty, and regular starter Alexis Andre Jr. Albeit they have made some good signings, like Sierra Leone international David Cisse, Chefte Tanga, which Mason fans will remember from his loan spell back in 2024, and Antigua and Barbuda international TJ Bramble. But I don't think any of these are as good as the outgoing players. I therefore think there is a deficit of quality to reach the playoffs, so I think they will finish in mid-table. 12th, Salisbury. Last season, they avoided the drop, and I think that can provide a huge sense of achievement and positivity enough to improve and finish mid-table. It's all part of a stable project at present with Salisbury, where they are gradually moving in the right direction. It's all down to Brian Dutton, that they managed to go from mid-table in the Southern League to staying up in the National League South, and can only improve from there. I think defensively, Salisbury are pretty sound, conceding only 69 goals last season, which would put them in 16th in goals conceded. It was just managing to get points, which was a difficulty. With 16 draws and 20 losses, they just needed to get a few more points, and mid-table would have been easy. That is a bit of a silly statement, granted, because with a few more points, any team would have done better. But I don't think much needs to change at Salisbury to do that, if you get what I mean. They have further strengthened their defence with Dominic Revan. Kenise Carroll is a loss, but other than that, I think the squad is no weaker than last season, and because they haven't now adjusted to this level, they can push on to mid-table. 11th place, Torquay United. Many people have probably predicted Torquay to go and win the title or playoffs. Not me, probably because I'm a fool. But we know how difficult the National League South was last season, and it has only gotten stronger from the relegated teams last season. Paul Wootton needs time to implement his project, who, yes, did well last season, but a lot has changed. I think moving on loyal servant Dean Moxey will prove a mistake, having been a key part of the squad over the last 5 years. Offren Zanzala, I believe, had something to prove and wasn't provided the chance. Lirak Hansani was an important player for Torquay last season. I also don't think Ben Seymour was given a chance. Just look at his goal scoring record at Plymouth Parkway, where he scored 20 goals in 37 appearances, and the season after scored 14 goals in 41 games for Hampton Richmond Borough. Overall, it was a side with much potential, but they scrapped that project, bringing EFL rejects in Callum Dolan, Louis and Dennis, and Sonny Fish. It's a risky strategy, with a lot of them not having much game time over the last few seasons. So I think a slow start while they get up to speed and end up looking within touching distance, but never crossing that line and finishing in top half but adrift from playoffs. 10th, Weston-super-Mare. Another season for Scott Bartlett, and we can certainly say things are all going quite well with Weston-super-Mare, with Bartlett taking over when Weston-super-Mare had been relegated to the Southern League and has since taken them back to the National League South, and last season were challenging for the playoffs. I envisage a similar season this time around, with not a lot changing, making Max Harris a permanent transfer and bringing in Daniel Martin. Ruben Reid will be a loss, having hit double figures last season and hugely experienced, but I think it will be another season challenging for the playoffs. 9th, Horsham. Dominic Paiola has already cemented himself as a club legend after earning 2 promotions to the National League South, the highest Horsham have ever played, the best run in the FA Trophy, and the best FA Cup run they've ever had, reaching the first round. Therefore, Di Paola has proven his Horsham side is more than capable of rubbing shoulders with the big boys. Therefore, I think this season will be another success with a playoff challenging season, but miss out by narrow margins. Rhys Murphy is a great signing. Let's not forget his 10 goals in 25 games with Yeovil, as they earned promotion from the National League South only 2 seasons ago. James Roberts is a solid player at this level, having reached double figures for goals last season. They haven't really lost anyone of note, and the positive vibes with the club will continue to take them to a playoff challenge. 8th, Chesham United. Despite my objections to joint managers, it cannot be denied that Chesham have been a success at this level. Having been promoted last season against the odds, they finished it mid-table. It is therefore of little surprise that a playoff challenge is the next logical step. There's clearly a project here and are reaping huge joys. No wonder little Alex Horn being the director of football and with Taskmaster previously being the sponsors. There has been some great signings on Matt McClure, who has goal scoring prowess in all 3 of the National League leagues. Giorgio Rasulo, who has had 5 seasons of phenomenal success with St Albans City. Alex Babos, who has challenged for playoffs the last couple of seasons with Hereford, and Alfie Williams, who possesses a lot of flair. I don't think any of the departures were National League South standard anyway, so overall have strengthened, so it's not all too surprising I back them for challenging for the playoffs this upcoming season. 7th, Worthing. Worthing have proven themselves as a playoff challenging team over the past 2 to 3 seasons now, I think it is. But it is worth noting this may be the hardest season to compete at the top end. After losing Hinshelwood a couple of seasons back to York, who proved vital to the success Worthing have had in the past, Chris Aguta, though, did an admirable job last season, achieving playoffs with Worthing. Again, however, that was with much of the same squad that he inherited from Hinshelwood. I must say some of the signings do leap out as standout quality. Harry Ransom, approaching the peak of his career, can prove himself as a star signing. Kwaku Frimpong, who has also really developed from the tough tackling midfielder who just breaks at play to play more offensively with skills, dribbles, assists, and goals, including some from his own half. He certainly is a signing which will get fans out of their seats, but they have lost players like Liam Nash, who scored 7 goals in 18 games. I would have thought he would have stayed a bit longer, since he signed only back in February. Same case with Danny Cashman, who scored 16 goals in 44 games last season. And that combination of 23 goals uh, of deficit will, from these two alone, means that I can only predict Worthing to sneak into the playoffs instead of confidently being able to say that they will make it. 6th, Maidenhead United. Alan Devonshire gained promotion with Maidenhead from the National League South in 2016-17, and also reached the playoff final of the Conference South with Hampton Richmond Borough in 2007-8 and 2008-9. So he has much experience with guiding clubs to success in this level. We know the board places a lot of trust in Devonshire, with him managing over 800 games for the Magpies. They've already fixed some of the problems they were experiencing last season. In terms of defence, they brought in an upgrade in goal with Geordie van Stappershoef, who was a backup last season, but the season prior helped to almost make the playoffs in the National League. They brought in Honoriase on a permanent basis and shifted Alan Macy, who I think has lost his legs, although I do think losing Tyrese Dyche and Kevin Loco and Craig Ross in one window could possibly cause some early season problems at the back. Matt Robinson is a good signing, who is a National League veteran, and if his signing was made in 2022, will probably be one of the best players to have in this league, but I'd say he's still decent now. Corey Andrews scored 9 goals with Oxford City last season, so patches a goal-scoring hole somewhat, but this doesn't bridge the gap of losing Toby Silva, who scored 1 goal, Tristan Abraham scoring 11, and Sean McCluskey, who scored 15, and their backups and wingers all in the same window. But the good news is they have the rest of the summer to find a replacement. I think they will therefore find themselves having a positive season in the making and will finish in the playoffs. 5th, Dagenham and Redbridge. The final relegated side from last season, and I think it will be make 2 out of the 3 of the teams relegated from the National League last season to make the playoffs. Lee Bradbury has had previous success in the National League South, reaching the playoffs in 2014-15 and 2017-18, the latter of which he won. So I certainly would expect a strong side to finish within the playoffs. An early shout, I'd say, would probably be expected to win them. There has been a huge turnover in players over summer, so we'll take time to adjust, but think they will be a solid playoff finishers come to the end of the season, especially with signings such as a pacey forward Donovan Wilson, who, let's not forget, helped Sutton United to promotion for Football League for the first time ever, and in their debut season reached the EFL Trophy final. Sam Howes, who in 2023 I thought was the best goalkeeper in non-league after that 2022-23 season with Whaleston, when everyone thought they were destined to go down but finished 12th. Christian Magoma from Aldershot, Corey Panther from Eastleigh, Ashley Hemmings, who is a playoff veteran at this level, with Kidderminster Harriers, achieving them twice and getting promoted once, and was the National League North Player of the Season and Team of the Season last season, as he scored 30 league goals last season, as Kidderminster, in my opinion, were absolutely mad to let him go. Promising youngster during his teenage years, Dermy Lusala, who did feature in the National League North playoffs last season, and the tenacious and tough tackling midfielder, George Marsh. They really have built a side to be at the top end of the table, and playoffs I think, would be justified. 4th, Eastbourne Borough. Shame Adam Murray opted for the lateral switch to Kidderminster Harriers, because I thought it was really building something in Eastbourne. However, in manager terms, they have pulled off a great manager with Matt Gray, who managed to get the mediocre Sutton United promoted from the National League, reach the EFL Trophy final, and just a point off the League Two playoffs. Everyone would probably agree that he was unfairly dismissed back in 2023, and it's probably why it has taken him so long to get back into management. And now he is back and better, where better rather, to take over Eastbourne, who are already into a great project. Harvey Lintott, having dropped down from League One to play for Eastbourne, who has experienced promotion from League Two before. Craig Eastman, who was a favourite of Gray's, and more importantly, earned a promotion from the National League South, National League, and recently a FA Trophy final. Some people may remember his time at Arsenal when he was starting alongside the likes of Cesc Fabregas and replacing Samir Nasri and Robin van Persie off the bench, and he's now at Eastbourne. Wild. New Zealand international goalkeeper Jamie Searle, who I must concede needs more game time, but is only 24. Tate Trusty, who helped Maidstone to the playoffs in the National League South last season. This doesn't even touch the promising youngsters on loan, the guys of Zimbabwe international Joey Futi from Sheffield Wednesday, Pemi Aderoju, from Peterborough United, and Victor Akinwale from Crystal Palace. Obviously, it will be an exciting season, but I do think fourth because I think there are three better teams. Third, Enfield Town. I think it's fair to say I was sceptical of Gavin McPherson to begin with, but he kept Enfield Town up in dramatic style. And I do think that miraculous run of form will be taken into this season and push them onto that next level and finish in the playoffs. Lamar Reynolds comes in having experienced National League South playoffs with Maidstone, Braintree, Chelmsford City, and has been in the FA Trophy final with Concord Rangers. Tommy Wood comes in with bags of National League South experience. Rareef Donaldson comes in having scored 25 goals in 188 games in the National League South from a left midfielder. Well, now they have survived in this league, the feel-good factor will push them into the playoffs. Second, Hampton Richmond Borough. Okay, I'm going to be honest, this is a situation where they either get relegated or do really well. Alan Julian was a huge risk and appointment, but if he adds the experience he had as a player of promotions from every level from Isthmian League to League 2 and an FA Trophy, then I see no reason why the Beavers can't challenge for the promotion this season. Admittedly, last season was a disappointment, but he needed to mould the squad into his image. They have already revolutionised their squad, adding Montserrat international experienced defensive midfielder Rohan Ince, who's played in the Championship, David Rodari, who scored 18 goals last season and 28 the season before in the Isthmian League, and plenty of youthful and high potential players, the likes of James Holden, who could bring a lot of energy and bravery to the league, chomping at the bit to get points. That youthful exuberance with a sprinkling of experience heads will be enough to see Hampton Richmond Borough fly up league and challenge for the playoffs once again. First, Slough Town. Last season was a blip, but before then they were really building something at Slough, and one season shouldn't define the future they are building. It could have been easy to dismiss Scott Davis of the season they just had, but the board has stuck with him, and thank goodness for that, because if we turn back to August 2024, he was the best manager in the National League South. The project tends to be taking the lower down the pyramid stars and make a strong team to face their opponents from bringing them up. This strategy has worked further up the pyramid before, but can sometimes take a long time to prove effective. I'm thinking of likes of some of them teams which have been promoted recently from like a Bournemouth, I think did that a few seasons back. I managed to get mid-table with it. Brentford have done a similar model, but with some abroad players as well. But yeah, I think this season is where they will reap their dividends and gain automatic promotion. Either that or end up relegated, one of the two for me. This is Scott Davis's final chance to make a mark. If not, I think he is washed. Thank you very much for watching this predictions video. I hope you all enjoyed. Please subscribe if you're new around here. Let me know your predictions down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? You're more likely to disagree. You always do. Do keep it civil. It's just one man's opinions after all. Just because I said it doesn't mean it's actually going to happen. And I actually do think that especially the National League North ones were fairly reasonable this season. But thank you very much for watching and goodbye for now.